Thanks everyone for having me. I'm going to take a little bit of a different spin. I'm not going to talk about teaching here. I'm going to talk about my first teaching gig, which was up in Nunavut. And so I'll start us off. I also have some pictures that, if you get bored of hearing my voice, there's going to be some visuals you can look at as well. So, and these pictures don't really coincide with too much what I'm talking about. It just gives you a kind of a feel of the environment, the people I'm talking about, and that type of thing. So first of all, my wife and I moved to Nunavut basically for one last adventure before we decided to set some roots down someplace, which ended up being here in this lovely place, Grand Prairie. And like most new teachers, I was equipped with strong lesson plans, ready to impact the students that I taught. And I remember talking to my fellow student teachers after I got the job in Repulse Bay that we were talking and we were like, you know what? If you could get just one or two of those students off to university and college, that would be a success. And I was like, yes, that's right. There's what I have it. I'm good. I've got my goal. I'm packed. I'm ready, and we're off. So year one. So I was hired as a social studies teacher, and I was eager to walk in my first day. I had a few stories ready to wow my students to get them hooked. Like I was drafted 16th overall in the CFL draft. And coincidentally, our special guest, David over there, was drafted 16th overall as well. The only difference, just don't stand up. The only difference is that he managed just to get on the active roster right away when I got cut basically faster than it took me to write this speech. So, but yeah. So things like that, just hooks. I was ready to get the kids' attention. And so I was ready. I had some good lesson plans. And I had Nunavut curriculum all down. I was ready to go. And throughout the year, I noticed one staggering thing. Even with my excellent lesson plans, my obvious wit and charm, I found my students bored. And not the kind of boring term that was thrown around that is basically the universal noun, adjective, and verb up north, which kind of segue into a little story I call my Jane story. One of my students, Jane, she was walking down the hall, and the entire grade 10 class was at the arena for a field trip. And I said, oh, Jane's here. I must be getting ready to teach because they're coming back. So Jane, are you guys coming back from the arena? She looks at me. She says, boring. I'm like, no, Jane. I didn't say, did you have fun? I said, are you guys coming back? Should I get ready to go? And she looked a little bit more disgusted. And she said, boring. It's like, oh, okay. Well, there's obvious miscommunication here. All I want to know is, should I get ready to teach my next class? Are you guys coming back? Boring. And just walked away. I was like, oh, Sai, I've obviously got a lot of things to learn here. So basically, my kids were bored. And throughout the year, I tried different things, tried to get them going. And the year came to the end. We were about to leave. And for the last few weeks or so, the students kept on asking Marin and myself, are you guys coming back? And we said, of course we are, we're coming back. And they had really high skepticism in their eyes, as if they've heard this tale before. So summer arrives, and did I spend the summer trying to figure out why my students were bored? Not really. What I did was regale my friends and family with unbelievable stories of the Great White North. Anything that shocked people was a bestseller. So things like how much milk cost. It was $15, just in case you're wondering. Our epic seal hunting trips. Or that one of my students lived with 22 other people in a 2-bedroom house. Like just shocking stuff. They weren't really interested in why my students were bored. So anyways, year two. I started with a lot more excitement than year one, and so did my students. They saw my face, they're like, wow, he's back, yes. And my classes were full of students for the first week anyways. And after started getting back into the curriculum, I noticed the same thing. Classes attendance started fading. And basically, it was one day on my, early on in the year, I looked at my students' faces when I was talking about a riveting lesson plan on regionalism and diversity in Alberta. And my mind wandered back to my first year when I thought, oh, they teach Alberta curriculum here. That's weird, but okay. And then I had an epiphany as I was talking here. I said, I'm relaying concepts in my teaching about a place where my students have never been and have no sense of belonging to just because it's in the textbook. and they wonder why Nunavut has a 35% high school graduation rate and over 50% dropout rate. Both winners in the categories compared to other provinces, but categories you don't want to be winners in. So anyways, let's backtrack. So remember in college when I was like, yeah, I know everything. I'm going to get these kids to university. That's fantastic. Talk about getting ahead of myself. How about getting kids to school in the morning and staying there, and when in there at school, having fun and being engaged? So anyways, back to my fantastic lesson plan on regionalism in Alberta. On the fly, I asked one simple question that completely changed the outlook of my teaching. What do you love about the land? Probably one of the most complex questions one could ask an Inuit. So much life, culture, history, and future is dependent on that one word, land. So my students' eyes all of a sudden lit up. They felt as though he actually gets us. And from that moment on, I truly began to build my relationships with my students. I got to see a glimpse of their true personalities, which was the beginning of kind of me embracing and loving who my students were, where they came from, and what makes them who they are. And in doing so, they were able to get to know who I was, where I came from, and learn about my culture. So moving forward through the next 4 years up north, I began to emphasize relationships, engagement, and creative ways to have fun at school. My time progressed in Nunavut, and I realized my time living in the north was getting shorter as my family was getting larger, much larger. So fast forward to my last semester at Tesarvik School, where my classes and lessons grew to be something a little different than how I was teaching my first year. The standards did not change much, but the delivery and engagement had turned to 180. I had the privilege of teaching a CTF film class, and as the vice principal, I was able to make the schedule. So I was able to schedule this class for 9 o'clock, the earliest class. Reasons being, I knew 4 things for certain. Number 1, the previous 4 years, our attendance at school had increased, proving to be one of the strongest in Nunavut, just under 60%. Even though we were doing great as far as Nunavut standards go, I felt we were still missing on a lot of things. We needed more connections. Number 2, the students love their culture. And I mean love. Love deeper than I love my children. Like, it is there. That is who they are. Number 3, their second love is technology. And this is before, they don't even have cell phone coverage up there. So just imagine when they get it. Whew, it's gonna be wild. Number 4, they also love being scared. The majority of the Inuit myths that they're taught when they're young are based around fear of actions that proved to be dangerous growing up in the tundra. A lot of it had to do with falling through sea ice and things like that. So knowing these 4 things, I thought that this film class could combine the latter 3 concept to improve the first certainty of our great attendance. So we embarked on the film journey. I plugged the idea of creating a script to the English teacher. Her class came up with a few scripts we had a choice to pick from, and we found the perfect one called A Smile to Die For. It was based on a myth of Mahaha, who was a creature that tickles you to death and pulls you into the ice. So it was a lesson told to young kids to keep them away from the sea ice, but any Inuit would say, I've seen him, he's real. So we had a script, now we needed a set. So my class teamed up with the cultural teacher, we went out on the land, we built igloos, we had that as base camp, everything seemed to be completing really well. The kids were just enthralled with this, they were so engaged. They had ownership to this idea. It was from their culture, it was something that they were doing. So attendance had been very strong in the past month in my class. We were learning new tools, playing with cameras, playing with the editing equipment, and since they were already here, they might as well stay for the rest of the day, and core class attendance improved quite significantly as well. So next came the actual filming of the movie. My class decided that any scary movie could not be filmed in the day, it had to be filmed at night, in the spring, in the Arctic, where there's only few hours of darkness. So I had to make a deal with them. I said, okay, if we're filming at night, you have to promise me you will be here in the morning. Oh yeah, Mr. Roberts. Actually, it was actually Jake up there. Oh yeah, Jake, we'll be there. Okay. So as I was leaving, I said, or left the day, okay, so I'll see you guys at set at 11 o'clock p.m. because it gets dark about midnight. They're like, yeah, we'll be there. Okay. So as I was leaving, I want to leave a little bit early, and as I was leaving, my wife, Maren, looks at me, she's like, "You're nuts." I'm like, I think I am, because I hope they show up. So I get out there, and I was getting a little bit worried by about 11:05, and then I hear a buzz of a skidoo coming. I was like, okay, there's one. And then skidoo after skidoo come up on set, they're getting ready. And I was quite, had embraced the North by then, because nothing worried me at all about 25 students coming off a skidoo with a loaded rifle on their back. Yeah, that happens. So, and actually, for the first time, I think I did have 100% attendance in my class at 11 o'clock at night. So, we did our filming, and then as we were leaving about 4 a.m., I said, "So we'll see you guys at class tomorrow in about a few hours." And they said, yeah, we'll be there. And I had the same skepticism in my eyes, I'm sure, that they had when I said I was coming back my first year. So the next morning, I walked into class, to get the computers ready for editing, and to my surprise, over half the class was already there. The bell rang, and they continued to come in, a full class, 100% attendance. So next night, we filmed again, 11 o'clock, full class, obviously. In the morning, I was, this is 2 days in a row, let's see what happens. Full class. Filming went off without a hitch, except for most of the class getting killed by some way or another by Mahaha, but other than that, it was fun. So I thought that was kind of my climax of teaching in Inuvik, because it was so successful, but that was just the beginning. We went into the editing phase. I had, like I said, about 22 students in the class. And this was the earliest class, 9 o'clock. They came in. They had their headphones. They put them on. It was, as far as teaching goes, it was the easiest 4 weeks of teaching of my life. I was about to say, okay, let's get started, and they told me to shut up. I'm working. And they just and they edited a full filmed, basically full length movie in about 4 weeks. So when it was done, those of you who have teach with me at Ivy Macklin and know I kind of do like to pack a gym and show off my kids' display of work somehow. So we decided to do a red carpet night. And many of my students had been in my entrepreneurship class in previous semesters and around the theater, so they knew the drill. They knew what to do. So they advertised around town, Facebook, offered free admission, and my students were so nervous on the night. I've never seen them be so empowered, but yet so nervous and scared at the same time, taking this risk. And so about 10 minutes before the planned showtime, there was a few people in the gym, and I was like, oh God, I started getting nervous. I'm like, I hope people come. They work so hard. And then that moment is the moment that I hope and wish that every teacher gets in their teaching career. The gym in that place, I'm gonna get teary. The gym in that place just packed. We have a town of 900 people, 600 people into the gym. It was wild. Anyways, so they were so proud. They got up on stage after and were like, huge cheers. It was awesome. So I'm running out of time. All right. So basically, I wouldn't have known they were capable of doing this if I didn't have the relationship I did with the students. And they wouldn't have given their 100% if they didn't have that same thing with me. It goes both ways. And these relationships aren't built in the classrooms. They're built in the hallways. They're built in conversations after school, lunches, out in the land. And that was what allowed me to create these meaningful relationships with students. So my 6 years up north, I started to understand a small amount of culture that's so unique and different from anywhere else in Canada. From what I thought when I first flew in, that was backwards and strange, I now realize that it was just simply different. And everyone has a different story. And that needs to be celebrated. Now don't get me wrong, I still like to tell the shocking stories about how much milk costs, about polar bears walking through town, about me eating a caribou eye because my students said it was delicious. They lied. And I do also tell a story about the student who lived with 22 people. I'm gonna get teary again. But where things change is that I say, yeah, she lived with lots of people, but she sleeps on the floor in the living room. She has parents who have strong negative associations with education because of their residential schooling. She's dealt with suicide. All these things, but yet she still comes to school and she still tries her best. She became a star of the movie. That's something she's proud of, that she loved. And she always will remember that. And it's because of those relationships up north and the ones I'm getting here that continue my teaching career and that I will cherish forever. So there we go. Thank you very much.